Hi everyone. Welcome to our first chat for the Health and Wellness 101 MOOC, sponsored by Global at Kansas State University. My name is Linda Yarrow, and I am one of the instructors for the course. I am a registered dietitian, so a lot of the answers that I may give you to some of your questions are largely based on my experience of working with my clients. And sometimes I'll even use some of my clients' examples, things they've worked that have been successful for them. I want to mention first, though, give a shout out to the Lawrence, Kansas Public Library. They are watching the chat today, and the Lawrence Public Library is using this MOOC as an educational series, and I think that's great that we have a library promoting health and wellness for their users. So shout out to Lawrence, Kansas. And there are others that have joined us today, and I appreciate you taking the time to do that. So I'm going to start off answering the questions, and many of you posted some of the same questions, so that showed us there was a lot of interest in them. The first question, this was mentioned by quite a few people, is what is the best way to stay on track once you have lost your weight and you want to maintain your goal weight? And losing weight, we know people can do that. The difficult part is maintaining the weight loss. And there is the National Weight Control Registry. It's maintained in the United States. And this is for people who have lost at least 30 pounds and kept the weight off for at least 1 year. So I'm going to share with you some of the tips of these individuals, how they've been able to keep the weight off. To maintain their weight, they are still exercising an average of 1 hour per day. 90% of them were getting 6 hours of exercise, 7 hours of exercise a week. And it doesn't have to be intense exercise. For many of them, it was a walking program. But that emphasizes the importance of remaining active even after you've lost the weight if you want to keep the weight off. And that can be hard to do, but very important to exercise for many other reasons. About half of them said they eat the same way on the weekends and the holidays as they do during the week. So they weren't using the weekends and special occasions to be able to double or triple their calorie intake. They kept their eating habits consistent. They stated that they were not eating fast food more than once per week because fast food is very tempting with the higher fat, higher calorie choices. And so they were limiting that. They also limited the variety of foods in their home. When they felt tempted to eat with a smaller variety, there were less things to cause them to overindulge. They continued to track their food intake daily. You need that constant awareness of what you're eating, because without it, you'll start to gradually increase your intake and not even realize it. So they maintain daily records. And as we mentioned in lesson 1, you can do it on websites. There's a lot of good ones. You can use Super Tracker, MyFitnessPal, Lose-It.com. There's a variety, but you can just do pen and paper. They also weighed themselves daily. 44% of them checked their weight every single day so that they had an early warning if they were starting to creep up. And most of them weighed themselves at least once per week if they weren't doing it daily. And that's what I recommend to my clients, to try to weigh at the same time each day, but at least 1 day a week. They ate breakfast, the majority of them, and they also ate 4 to 5 times every day. By doing that, they were more satisfied with their food intake and they were less likely to overeat. And they also watched fewer than 10 hours of TV per week, because when we're watching TV, we tend to be on the couch or in the recliner, which means we're not moving. So by limiting their TV time, it basically helped them increase their activity. Another question was, how do I eat healthy on a limited budget? There are a lot of recommendations for this. So what I'm going to do along with this chat as I archive it, I am going to post a link that will take you directly to K-State's extension page, one of their home pages, because on that they have a lot of handouts about how to eat healthy on a budget. Just to give you an idea of some of the topics you're going to see. 10 tips to trim utility cost and improve efficiency in the kitchen. Cooking on a budget. entertaining and eating out on a budget, grocery budgeting for adults and kids, grocery shopping on a budget, saving on fruits and vegetables, saving on protein foods. So they've got a lot of good handouts. They're going to show you how you can still eat healthy and eat a well-balanced meal by watching the amount you're spending. So that link will be available for you. The next question, how do I raise my HDLs? If you've read last week's lesson where we talked about the macronutrients under fats, we talked about the good fats, the bad fats, and cholesterol is made up of HDL and LDLs. LDLs, I tell people, think of little devils. That helps you remember the LDL are the bad guys. HDLs are the good guys. We want them to be high, so high density lipoproteins. So in order to raise HDLs and to give you a benchmark, you're considered at risk for heart disease, increased risk if you are a male with an HDL of less than 40 and if you are a female with an HDL of less than 50. The best thing you can do is if you smoke is to quit smoking. Smoking reduces HDLs. And if you stop smoking, your HDLs can go up by as much as 10%. The other very effective strategy is to lose some weight if you are considered overweight or obese. For every 6 pounds that you lose, your HDL can increase by 1 milligram. So one of our focuses on this lesson is to help people manage their weight. So hopefully if you want to lose weight as it comes down, HDLs go up. Increasing activity has a very positive effect on HDLs. Studies have shown that within 2 months of starting a brisk activity of 30 minutes a day, you can increase your HDLs by 5%. Now, increasing your monounsaturated fats doesn't necessarily raise your HDLs, but it can improve the ratio of your HDLs to LDLs, because obviously we want to have less LDL in comparison to our HDL. And so if you focus on the monounsaturated fats and you reduce your saturated fat content, then what HDL you do have begins to work more efficiently in your body. And in lesson 1, we did give you some examples of the mono and the polyunsaturated fats. Now, another way to raise HDLs is to drink alcohol, but you do so in moderation. 1 drink a day for women, 2 drinks a day for men is the recommendation. However, if you are not already drinking alcohol, we do not recommend that you start drinking just to raise your HDLs, because there can be a genetic tendency for alcoholism, and not knowing whether or not that may be in your history, it would not be recommended. And within the questions that were asked, a lot of students volunteered some good tips, and we had very good suggestions given this week. So go back and read through where the questions were asked, and you're going to see some information, because one student in response to this question said, focus on the monounsaturated fats, which I mentioned, and they listed sources of the monounsaturated fats, like nuts, olives, avocados that we talked about in the lesson. So once you posted your question, go back and look, because you're going to see you've been given some responses by other students, and I've been very pleased with the feedback we've been getting. So the next question, this was asked by quite a few people. How do I gain weight that is muscle and not fat? It's not so much related to the diet to increase your muscle. It's related more to the strength training. You need resistance type exercise in order to build the muscle up. And let's say that on Monday you do strength training and you work on your upper body. Tuesday you would want to work on your lower body. You wouldn't want to repeat the upper body, because when you do strength training, you break down muscle tissue. When it repairs itself even stronger. So that's why we say do strength training maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or alternate lower body, upper body activities. You have to give your body that time to repair. And that's basically how you build muscle. But diet is important. One of our students in response to this question said focus on lean protein for recovery, which is very important. And we'll talk more about this when we have a chat over week 3, which is exercise. We'll talk about lean proteins for recovery. And making sure you also have adequate calories and particularly adequate carbohydrates in your diet. Because if you're taking in too low of calories or too low a level of carbohydrates, you're not going to have the energy to sustain any strength program. I'm also going to provide you some more links from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. They have a sports and cardiovascular subgroup that has some great handouts for athletes. And I'll probably post these links again when we deal with a chat on exercise, but I want to give you an early start to be looking at some of the sports nutrition handouts. How do I gain weight was a frequent question. From my experience in working with clients, it is harder to gain weight than it is to lose weight. So I'm going to give you some suggestions that have worked for people. Underweight is considered a BMI of less than 18.5, and in week 1 we had you plot your BMI. I like to get clients to a BMI of 20. Even though 18.5 is considered normal, I like for them to have a little room to play around if they get sick or get ill and might lose some weight. So some tips for gaining weight. Eat more frequently, because you're probably getting full faster than the normal person, and that's why you can't eat as much. So if you eat 5 to 6 small meals a day, you can usually get in more food throughout the day. And also eating frequently stimulates the release of insulin, and insulin stimulates hunger. Make sure you're eating nutrient-rich foods since your intake may be smaller. Whole grains, pastas, cereal, dairy products, lean meats. Make all of your intake count. So while we do promote water, try to make sure that the majority of your beverages contain calories, such as in smoothies and milk and fruit juices, things like that. Focus on healthy fats, but focus on fats. Fats are your highest source of calories in the diet. We talked about in lesson 1 that fats give you 9 calories per gram, and protein and carbohydrates only give you 4 calories per gram. So fats are giving you more than twice the amount of calories. So some high fat foods that are also healthy fats. Avocados, you can put them on sandwiches, you can make guacamole, snack on them. Put them in salads. Nuts of any sort, and nuts are heart healthy. Peanut butter, even though it's a high fat food, it has an emphasis on the monounsaturated fats. Flaxseed and chia seed are kind of the 2 popular items right now that are being incorporated into a lot of foods. But they're also a good source of the healthy fats. Other high-calorie sources, cheeses, and there are some lower-fat versions. Dried fruits are not necessarily fats, but a good source of calories. One of my favorites is Greek yogurts. You can find some that are a good source of calories and give you some excellent protein. I mentioned smoothies and shakes. You can add the flaxseed and the chia seed to your smoothies and your shakes. You can consider a meal replacement such as Carnation Instant Breakfast or Ensure in between your meals. Don't drink too many fluids right before your meal because it may decrease your appetite because you're already feeling full. Most of my clients do best to drink their fluids with their meals or after they've already finished eating. A couple of more tips: add cheese and nuts to your casseroles, to egg dishes. You can buy non-fat dry milk and add it to your soups. You can add it to stews. And then also exercise, because exercise will, especially strength training, will increase muscle mass, which increases your weight, and exercise can also stimulate an appetite. The next question: what foods are low in sodium and low in sugar? Fresh foods are your best bet. We're going to talk about low sodium foods when we get into labels, and so we'll probably get more deeply into that. But a low sodium food by definition is less than 140 milligrams per serving, so look for something that says 140 milligrams or less per serving. But some ideas: avoid canned products, especially canned meats and canned vegetables, because sodium is the preservative. You can buy low sodium ones, but in canned products, we tend to dump off the liquid, and you're also dumping off nutrients, water-soluble nutrients. So I prefer frozen vegetables if fresh is not really an option for you at that time. I mentioned the canned meats. Watch cured meats and processed meats. You want to focus on fresh meats. But be careful, because even some things like a turkey or a turkey breast may have had a sodium solution infused into them to increase the moistness and to enhance the flavor. So if you're not sure, ask your butcher. And fresh fruits, fresh vegetables. You're not going to have to worry about the sodium content with those. The next question, how to walk inside without a treadmill. And with the weather being so cold in so many parts of the United States, it's been hard for many of us, myself included, to get outdoors and walk. But you can walk in place if you're. I find a good TV show that I know will keep my attention. And just to show you, even in my office here at K-State, I keep a pair of tennis shoes for when I haven't been very active or I want to walk. And I also have a yoga mat. And so I just unfold this, I put it down here in front of my computer, and I bring up Netflix, and I will walk in place a lot of times for 45 minutes to an hour while I'm watching a show during my lunchtime. There are also some YouTube videos, there's walking videos, there's walking DVDs. So you've got some options if you check the internet, YouTube in particular, all sorts of exercise videos out there on YouTube. And someone said the treadmill is very boring at home, so what else could they use that may not be boring? Some other ideas, someone mentioned a gazelle. There's the elliptical, the rowers, the stationary bikes, there's climbing machines. They can be expensive, but honestly, probably 50% of people who buy exercise equipment don't actually use it except as a spot to hang their clothes. So start checking the classifieds. Watch for people in your area who have exercise equipment to sell, because it's probably not been used very much, and you're going to get a great bargain by doing that. The next question. Super Tracker said my goal was 2,000 calories, which seems too low. Now, Super Tracker is going to be conservative on their estimate, and it also depends on how you entered your information and what you entered your goal as. So in order to determine what you really should be using for calories based on your goal, as a general rule, 500 calories less per day will bring about 1 pound of weight loss a week. In reality, it's more like a half a pound a week, but still, half a pound a week is 2 pounds a month. That's 24 pounds a year. So you basically need to expend more calories than you're eating. So what you want to do is record your food intake for a week, see how much you're actually eating. Using the tools we gave you in lesson 1, that net calculator where you entered your height, your weight, your age, your gender, and activity, it would have given you an estimate on how many calories it takes for you to maintain your weight. Compare that against what you're eating, see what happens on your weight. Then you can get a feel on, do you need to decrease your calories even further? I recommend you don't go less than 1,200 calories without medical supervision. And most women, most of my clients to lose weight followed anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500 calories a day. And the men followed anywhere from 1,500 to 1,800 calories a day in order to lose. Now, there's another method you can use to determine how many calories you need a day just to maintain. And then once you figure that out, you can decrease calories. Now, this is based on someone who has a very low activity level. So I'm going to say someone with a desk job who sits 7 to 8 hours a day. You use 25 calories per kilogram of body weight. So as an example, if a person weighs 180 pounds, we divide by 2.2 in order to get 82 kilograms. 82 times 25 means they need 2,000 calories a day to maintain their weight, assuming they are not active. So that's another way you can get kind of a starting point. And then if you wanted to subtract 500 calories a day to promote weight loss, you would go start consuming 1,500 calories a day. But again, unless you start tracking your food and weighing and measuring things, you never really know if you're taking in 1,500 calories. So the next question related to this said, if I eat 1,200 calories a day and I burn 700 calories, do I make up those calories? I'm guessing this person probably uses MyFitnessPal, and MyFitnessPal tells you to eat back your calories. And they're doing that for liability reasons. They don't want someone to lose weight drastically and develop health complications. But I would say in this situation, yes, you need to eat back some of the calories, because if you're eating 1,200 and you exercise enough to expend 700, it all depends on what your starting weight was, but chances are you're not going to have enough energy to maintain your exercise routine. So, I would probably suggest to someone maybe go with 1,500 to 1,800 calories a day if you're expending around 700 in your exercise. Because it has to be a lifestyle habit that you can maintain, but you've got to have some energy at the same time. How do I adjust my calories if I don't exercise for 2 weeks because of an injury? Another question said because I'm sick. And again, it depends on your weight, but I would go back to the estimate I gave you earlier, 25 calories per kilogram of body weight, because that formula is based on somebody who is sedentary, which is what you're doing when you're injured or you're sick. And it may be with the type of injury you have, you might be able to perform other exercises. Maybe you can't be on a bike or on a treadmill, but maybe you can go swimming. Maybe you can sit in a chair and do chair exercises, and you will find videos on the internet that show you how to do chair exercises. One person asked how to adjust exercise if they're dealing with a chronic illness such as cancer. That I'm not able to answer because that's a very individual question. When I have someone in my office, I need to know where they are in the disease process, what has worked, what hasn't worked. More specifically, what has your doctor said you're approved to do? So that really is going to vary by the individual. How do I make clean eating more enjoyable? A lot of you said, I just don't like fish. And there were some people who offered suggestions on the message board also about how to eat fish. But to eat clean, eating clean, even though it's one of the catchphrases, it's what we've been recommending all along. Eat fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, whole grains, limit your processed foods. So really focus on fresh fruits and vegetables to make it more enjoyable, to get as much flavor out of things as you can. Variety is the key. When the fresh fruits and vegetables may not be in season in your area, you should be able to get them frozen. You can still have the variety in your diet. And Google ideas. Go to Pinterest and you'll find a lot of ideas for getting a variety of meals and recipes. And we're going to focus on that in lesson 5. What is the best way to lose belly fat? It would be great if we could spot reduce, but we can't. When you lose weight, you can't make it come off one particular part of your body. Now you can do exercises that will tone up the abdominal region, but the only way to lose belly fat is to lose weight overall, and it will come off in the abdominal region just like any other parts of your body that have excess fat. There were a few of you that said, how do I eat when I do shift work? This is tough. And again, this varies by the individual on how many days a week you have shift work, what are your hours. Are you responsible for children or a significant other and you've got to be awake to prepare meals, to take them to events? So all I can do is really give you general ideas that I have my clients focus on. It takes experimenting. So you try something, you see if it works, and if it doesn't, then I try to help them come up with other activities. But you need to figure out what can be regular meal times for you during that shift work. A lot of times we'll take the hours that they're awake and we'll say, okay, this is going to represent breakfast time, this represents lunch time, this represents supper time. And focus on small snacks that are low in calories, because you're going to get hungry at weird times when your work hours change due to shift works. So somebody asked, what are some good snacks to keep on hand because I'm doing shift work? Low-fat yogurts, fresh fruits, cut up some peppers, broccoli, cauliflower florets, baby carrots, mushrooms. Have some, hopefully you've got some place you can keep things in a fridge, but having fresh fruits on hand. Nuts have staying power, and you can buy 100-calorie packs on your nuts so that they're portioned for you. There are also some high-fiber granola bars that are anywhere from 100 to 160 calories, and the fiber is more satisfying. Someone mentioned that they were a long-time vegetarian who's now dairy-free, so what can they do to get the nutrients? And our biggest concern is that you'll have inadequate calcium and vitamin D. You can buy foods that are fortified with calcium and vitamin D. Many cereals are fortified. Orange juice is an example that can be calcium fortified. Soy milk, which is dairy-free, is usually calcium and vitamin D fortified. Some foods, mushrooms, are an excellent source of vitamin D, and most people aren't even aware of this. Broccoli is high in vitamin C, spinach, kale, turnip greens. So think of your dark greens as a source of calcium. And I'm also, after this chat, I'm going to give you some links to the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetic that has information on vegetarian diets, and they'll give you tips on covering some of these nutrients. Okay, the next question says, what are some low carbohydrate snacks for someone that has diabetes? The lowest carbohydrate snacks are going to be your raw vegetables, everything but corn, peas, and potatoes. Those are the higher carbohydrate vegetables. But for everything else, a half cup cooked or 1 cup raw is only 5 grams of carbohydrate. So have those bagged up and ready to go, or even just cooked vegetables. I cooked up a whole head of cabbage on Sunday, and when I'm getting the craving for something, I'm just pulling out some of my cooked cabbage and heating it because I love it. Low calorie, low carb, great vitamin C source. There are granola bars that are less than 20 grams of carbs. I don't promote brands in particular, but just so you can look for this, but also pay attention to other things on the shelves. Thomas Bagel Thins. These give you 5 grams of fiber. You can use them to put peanut butter on if you wanted. I put hummus on it, which is a chickpea product. And they're right around 15 grams of carbs, 100 calories, and you get 5 grams of fiber. Wasa crackers, W-A-S-A, they're a very hard cracker, low in carbs. I'll dice up cucumbers and tomatoes and peppers, and I'll eat those on a Wasa cracker and really enjoy it. And if you're craving something sweet that's low carb, sugar-free fudgesicles. If I don't exercise daily, is 5 times a week okay? And absolutely. 5 times a week should be the minimum. We recommend 150 minutes a week at a minimum, spread out over 5 days. So if you can't get in daily exercise, 5 times a week is great. I'd encourage you to focus on that. There were a couple of people that said, I don't like fruit. Can I eat just vegetables instead? Or how can I learn to like fruits? Well, I really encourage you to look at this week's discussion board, because our challenge to you was to share ways that you can increase fruits and vegetables this week. And you're going to see a variety of ideas of how people are doing that. Because we do encourage you to have both fresh fruits and vegetables in your diet, because when you get to lesson 4, you're going to see all the nutrients that you'll get by eating a variety that are very important. Fruits are your primary source of vitamin C and potassium in the diet. And it's very hard to eat enough vegetables to make up those nutrients. So that's why we would really like you to be able to get your fruits. And consider eating dried fruits, raisins, cranberries, dried apples, dried bananas. You can add fruit to yogurts, to cottage cheese, to your cereal, to salads. So if you don't like eating fruits on their own, look at ways you can incorporate them into other foods. You could slice up bananas and put them on a peanut butter sandwich, might be an alternative. And then the last question, because we're almost out of time, is what are some snacks that are high in protein but lower in calories? My favorite, you're going to probably hear me bring this up a few times, is the Greek yogurt. Greek yogurts, they have low-fat varieties, they have high-fat varieties. I choose the low-fat varieties myself. But they're very high in protein, giving you anywhere from 11 to about 16 grams of protein for 1 serving, depending on the variety that you pick. I use these as a post-workout food because protein intake after a workout is important to muscle repair. So Greek yogurts are great. I mentioned earlier the nuts, 1 ounce of nuts, and you can buy the 100-calorie packs on nuts. So it's a good source of protein and some fat, so staying power, but you're controlling the calories. Mozzarella cheese sticks. Mozzarella cheese is one of the lower fat cheeses, and if you buy them in the cheese sticks, they're 1 ounce portions. So they are portion controlled for you and you're less likely to overeat. Boiled eggs. Great source of protein, very economical. We do caution you to limit the number of yolks, egg yolks, that you eat to 3 to 4 a week because of the saturated fat in them. But you can toss out the yolks and eat just the egg whites. You can do scrambled eggs. There's also something like egg beaters and egg scramblers, which are the egg whites with a little bit of food coloring and stabilizers added so that you don't have all the yolks in them. And then I mentioned hummus earlier. Hummus is made from chickpeas, and it's peas are a source of protein. And you can put hummus on crackers and things like that. So those are some ideas of protein foods that are lower in calories. Now, we are out of time. I promised you 30 minutes. There were some questions I didn't get to. I will include them next week, but also continue to add questions for next week's discussion. So next week, we're going to talk about whether you should eat before or after you exercise. Many of you wanted to know more about how to stay motivated, how to not sabotage yourself. There's a strong emphasis on this in Lesson 6, but I'm going to pull out ahead of time some of our tips from Lesson 6 because I don't want to make you wait another 4 weeks in order to get some of that information. There were questions on whether or not to take vitamins, and we're going to hit on vitamins in Lesson 4, but again next week I'm going to go ahead and introduce a little bit of information. There was a question about walking on a treadmill. How do I improve my results, and how do I make time to make meals at home? So, didn't get to them today, but I will include those next week along with any more questions that are asked. So, thank you for submitting your questions. I really like to be able to help you with things that maybe we didn't quite cover in the content of the MOOC. So, continue to submit questions. Next week, we will do this at the same time. Have a great day, everyone.